The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on our LTAP and Central Ohio APWA co-sponsored webinar on de-icing with direct liquid application. My name is Josh Ford, and I'm the president for the Central Ohio chapter of APWA. Joining us today, we have three speakers to talk about how they have implemented liquids into their winter weather approach. First up is Dale Calcamuggio at ODOT District 2. Dale is the Roadway Services Manager and is one of the folks that heads up ODOT's direct liquid application program. Dale has been involved with liquids for many years and is a subject matter expert. Joining Dale is Dan Whited, Director of Service and Engineering for the City of Worthington, and Steve Tennant, Superintendent for the City of Worthington. Dan and Steve implemented direct liquids into their snow removal strategy several years ago and will talk about their approach in a more urban setting. Please enter any questions into the chat and we will cover those at the end of the presentation. Now I will turn things over to our presenters.
Well, I want to welcome everybody. This is Dale Calcamuggio with the Ohio Department of Transportation. Just to give you a little information real quick, I've been with the department now for almost 36 years and have started this liquids program probably in about 2006, 2007, right in there, and have been developing it to the point where it is today. Steve?
Thanks, Dale, and thanks for everybody for attending today. As Josh said, Dale is the resident expert, and I learned quite a bit from Dale, but a little bit about me. I've been with the City of Worthington for 33 years, and I am currently the superintendent here for 5. I witnessed a presentation by Dale at the snow conference and decided that liquids was a great opportunity for Worthington to try, and so we've been practicing liquid application since 2018-19 snow season. And I'm excited to explain some of the things that we've learned and how successful we've been with it. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Dale.
Today's presentation is basically the way the screen says. You know, some of the information we're going to be giving you is liquids. Should I? And I say that because there's always this lot of fallacy. Oh, I'm not getting into liquids. I don't want anything to do with it. And I've heard all across the country in speaking, it just turns to ice. Well, it can, but if you don't make it right and if you don't apply it right, it's usually not the liquid's fault. It's usually the operator's fault. So I always say, you know, liquids, should I or should I not, you know? And we're going to try to answer any of those questions, try to help you get through this and tell you some of the stuff that we have found here at the Ohio Department of Transportation. And like Steve says, with his municipalities, and he's not alone. The city of Bowling Green, Worthington, Dublin, a lot of places are adding these. I've been working with them over the years to try to get them to start programs, and we will talk about that later. A little bit about my district up here. You know, District 2, sorry about that, wrong screen, there we go. District 2 sits in Northwest Ohio. We get about 40 to 45 inches of snow a year, give or take a little bit. You know, some years are way more than others, but some years are way less. So just to let you know where we're situated here in Bowling Green, Ohio. I'm at the district headquarters, and everything in yellow up there in the northwest corner, that's us. Obviously, Worthington sits right in the middle, right at Franklin County and Columbus, just on the north side of Columbus. And they get, from what I'm gathering, Steve, about the same as we do up here, between upper 20s to low 40s inches per year.
That's correct. About 27 inches a year is on average what we're getting.
Today's objectives. So what we're going to try to do here today is we're going to talk about liquids, and we're going to talk a little bit about how it can save you salt, can save you time, and can save you money. Whether you're a small township, whether you are a small city, you know, this will save you time, save you salt for one, and save you time and money. Whoops. Easier and less post-storm cleanup. One of the things we have found out, you know, by using more liquids, it's really taking that that snow and melting it, and it's not building up. So it's a lot less post-storm cleanup. And we're going to show you a little bit about applications for small and large organizations, whether you're a big city, Columbus, Toledo, different areas, Cleveland. You know, you don't have to be just a big city. You can be a small town. Bowling Green is really big into this. The city of Bowling Green, which is about the size of Worthington. So you can be large and small organization. We're going to talk about equipment requirements. We're going to, you know, talk about what you're going to need for tank capacities. What we're going to talk about, you know, application rigs, stuff like that. Types of application rates, we're going to discuss that. And regional partnerships, working with others. One of the biggest things, and we're going to talk about this later, but one of the biggest things that I can tell you, these regional partnerships, working with each other, working with your neighbor who's next to you, and trying to get things together, it'll help you save that time and money.
With that comment, Dale, I'd like to offer to any of the communities that are surrounding us. We did not have anybody to go and talk to. We went to Bowling Green and spoke with that staff. They're the applicators, the guys and gals that were actually out on the road. We will offer that here to any community, small or large, that would like to see our operation and come and meet with the guys that apply. You're more than welcome to call me at any time, and we can set that up. That's really huge, is working with local communities to help each other achieve the same goal. So I'll go ahead and let you continue from that.
Okay. Benefits. Liquid roadway treatments they're responsive. They're reliable. Liquids are predictable and they're accurate. They're straightforward. Liquids are easy to control and apply. Where you put it down is where they go. There's no bounce, scatter, there's nothing. Where you put liquids down, it goes. Very effective. Liquid treatments stick to the road better than solids. We're going to talk about it here in a second, but you know, bounce and scatter, you know, we lose a lot of salt to that. When you put liquid down, it's going to the road. It's very efficient. Reload times can be shorter for liquids than solids, just depending on your lineup and how much pump capacity you have, which we're going to talk about in equipment. And it's very controlled. When you're applying liquids, and we'll talk about it here in a little bit with application rates, when you are dialing in your application rate for 25 gallons a lane mile or 10 gallons a ton, you know, depending on what you're doing with it, you can be very specific. You know exactly how much is going in on the roadway, onto your salt. It's a spinner. It's very controlled and very economical. Most agencies we're seeing, and we'll talk about it here in a little bit again, but we're seeing here at the Ohio Department of Transportation around 39%. I know talking with Steve, he's seeing around 33% savings, you know, so it's really economical. So you should be able to see those kinds of gains. What I'm going to talk about right now is a little bit of the three concepts. Pre-wetting is one of the concepts. And pre-wetting is applying liquids to the salt that is being applied. So if you're applying salt to the roadway, the old school, when I first started here in 1985 at the department, it was salt coming out of the back of the trucks, put it on a spinner and put it on the road. And one of the municipalities up here that we talked about, we called it doorstep to doorstep, because they would run their salt and the spinner would be on so high, they would spread it from door front to door front, all the way across the street, including the yards. But now you can reduce this by putting it on liquid on at the spinner, and that's called pre-wetting. So when you hear somebody say, hey, I do pre-wetting, now you understand that that's what they're doing. A little bit about that bounce and scatter we were talking about. This was a research that was done by the University of Michigan. Sorry for Ohio, but it was done by Michigan. And without applying any liquid at the spinner, you're losing only 46% of your salt is staying in the middle of the roadway, 12% on the edge, and 15% is lost on each side of the roadway. So with no liquid at the spinner, you're losing 30% of your salt right off the bat, off the roadway. And then after another 100 vehicles, there's only 20% of the material left on the pavement. So that's huge. I mean, you're to get 200 pounds a lane mile, you're putting down 800 pounds a lane mile to keep 200. You only put 200 down a lane mile, which is our max rate. You know, you gotta, to get that, you're losing most of it. So bounce and scatter is a big thing. Now, just by pre-wetting it, and notice at the bottom, using 10 gallons to 15 gallons a ton. So if you are spreading salt and you're putting liquid at the spinner, using liquid, and you're applying that liquid at the spinner at 10 to 15 gallons a ton coming out, you're only, if you look here, 78% of this salt is going to stay in the middle, 9% on the edges, and you're only losing 4%. So that's 2% on each side of the roadway. On a 2-lane road, you're losing 2%. After 100 vehicles go over it, 80% of all that material is still remaining in the thing. So if your application rate is 200, you're going to be at 180, because you're going to keep that at least 80% of your rate there. So that's just by using it at the spinner is huge. So instead of putting down 600 gallons to get your 200 or 600 pounds per lane mile, now you can dial it in and you can use that liquid. The next thing we're going to talk about is what's next after pre-wetting is anti-icing. You hear it a lot where people talk about anti-icing, and it's a proactive treatment, sometimes called pre-treatment, pre-treating the road. You hear a lot of places say, oh, we're going out pre-treating today. And that involves the application of a liquid treatment prior to the onset of a snow event that prevents snow and ice from bonding to the roadway. Very huge. When we pre-treat, we do a lot of pre-treating up here in Northwest Ohio. We'll get out ahead of an event, and when we know we're going to have a 4 to 6 inch snowstorm, 2-inch snowstorm, a lot of it, we can get out ahead of it and we can apply a pre-treating of liquids on all of our roadways. It used to take us 3 days to get most of our lane miles pre-treated. Once we went to our semis and our bigger applicators, we're getting it done in 1 day. We can get about 1,400 lane miles of just in the 3 county garages that we work with a lot on this. We can get it done in literally 1 day versus what used to take 3 days. Steve, do you guys do any pre-treating?
We do. We that's how we began. Is we bought a 1,000-gallon tanker to do anti-icing, and then we saw your presentation and was ready to start doing DLA. But that's what we began with, was a tanker. Just to give a little background, we're 5 square miles, 160 lane miles. We pre-treat all of our priority 1 and 2s prior to a storm. Sometimes, you know, we're 12 guys strong. Sometimes we have other things going on. The goal is to anti-ice before any 2-inch storm. So there's been times we have not. We have 58 priority 1s or mains, and that's where we do all of our DLA. So we can do that in an afternoon, do all of our 1s and 2s relatively quickly with 1 or 2 trucks.
Good. And we do a lot of pre-treatment. Like I said, on our areas, when we talk about our direct liquid applications and we show you, we don't pre-treat those roads. Our main thoroughfares are 4-lane, 6-lane interstate areas, strictly because we send our semis out on those routes and they start doing direct liquid right off the bat. So there's really not much of a need for it. But here's a little short video. This is one of our trailer units. This was made by our workers in one of our garages. And it's just pre-treating some bridge decks. And you'll be able to see right there, the liquid's coming out. He's even has a right shooter, so he's shooting the shoulder on the bridge deck. Right there it comes on. And he's shooting the shoulder to try to keep it down, turns it off, and he's heading to the next bridge deck because there's 2 bridges right next to each other. But this is a 2,400 gallon. It was strictly made by our employees that made it. It's completely, they can unhook it, they can pull it with a single axle, and it works great. This anti-icing picture right here, this is a 4-lane interstate section over in our Lucas County area. So it's the right side of the roadway was pre-treated. The left side of the roadway was not pre-treated. And you can see that the pre-treatment came over just a little bit and took a little bit off the center line. But when you pre-treat, you can almost chew up a good 3/4 of an inch, half to 3/4 of an inch of snowfall before it'll start to stick again. And that strictly has to do with a dilution of the solution, which we'll talk about. But right there is a clear-cut example, and it can slow your response time down a little bit to where you don't need to be as responsive. So if you think you're going to get a snowstorm, you might not, and then we'll get out, we'll pre-treat, and then that way, if we're waiting for the weekend and it's not going to rain, it'll last 2 or 3 days, no problem. And we get out there, and then we can call our crews in, and they don't have to rush. De-icing. So you got pre-wetting, you got anti-icing, and then you have de-icing. Obviously, it's a reactive treatment for melting existing snow and ice from the surface, either as a treatment by itself or to add mechanical removal. So de-icing, basically one of the things you hear is, it's after the fact. It's reactive, not proactive. Here's a clear-cut case of one of our areas where it got away from us. And it got to hard pack, and there's a lot of snow. And this is a picture of our tanker going through, and it is de-icing, where basically we are flooding that area to turn it into, help us mechanically remove it. The last thing that we're going to, in this, we're going to talk about direct liquid application. This will probably be the biggest thing. If you pre-wet your salt, you're going to create a great, good savings on your reduce your salt. But the big thing we are doing here in Northwest Ohio is we are direct liquid application. And basically it's the use of liquid only treatments before, during, and after the storm event for anti-icing and de-icing combined. We will literally send our trucks out right as the storm's starting or just before and start putting down liquids. Quick little video. Here again is our trailer unit. Now, if you notice on this trailer unit, it can put salt down, but he has all of the options. He can plow, he can salt, or he can pull the trailer, and he has liquids with him. I have it in slow-mo, but he's running probably 25, he's taking off some slush off the roadway. Obviously, you can see it's snowing, it's sticking to the grass, but everywhere he's at and he's running that liquid, there's no stick. And this driver, when we don't, one of our rural counties uses this now, but he can put salt. If he feels that he needs a little bit more, he can throw down, 20, 30 pounds a lane mile, or 100 to 200 pounds a lane mile if he wants to, or he can throw just 50 pounds a lane mile because he's putting down the liquid. His application rate is around 40 gallons a lane mile, and that we'll show you here in a little bit on a chart. We use our chart, and basically it is based upon temperatures and amount of snow per hour. Here's a quick video. This is our 475 around Metro Toledo. This is one of our semi units. And this is a liquid only area. So this is an area we'll talk about, liquid only routes. This gets covered by our semis, where they constantly, every 2 hours, are putting liquid down, and they're circling the City of Toledo and 475 area. As you'll see in this video, it's snowing to beat heck, and it's sticking on the bridges, it's sticking in the grass. It's everywhere except where he's applying liquid. With our semis, just so you know, traffic's moving at 55 miles an hour here. The semis, the way they're built, they can, on the interstate system, they can apply at traffic speed. So they're applying at about 55 miles an hour, 50 to 55. So they're not getting in everybody's way. Traffic will pass him, no problem. They get in the other lane. Now you can see the bridge right here. The bridge is building up on the right and left shoulders, but not in the lanes where he's applying the liquids. This is the City of Worthington has a video here, which they will, Victoria, if you guys can show that video now.
I sure will. I'm load it up right now.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I was talking while I was muted. These are two of our DLA trucks. This is one of our mains. This is a January 12th storm, 4 inches of snow. You can see here the lead truck is putting down liquid. You'll see on the return direction of how clear the lane is. This is the lead truck view. I wanted to point out a couple things here. If you look along the berm, this is a 4.5 inch storm, very little buildup. The liquid brine has been melting snow from the beginning of this storm. So cleanup is going to be extremely easy after this event. You can see the sidewalks have quite a bit of snow on them. So extremely effective. We're very happy with how well this is working out for us.
I'm going to stop the video now and put things back over to Dale.
That video also kind of demonstrates what Dale talked about at the very beginning with salt, time, and money. You know, we've reduced the amount of salt there, and the amount of time we're spending on cleanup is absolutely huge. And we'll show more of that here later in the presentation.
And just like Steve was just talking about, the next phase, and I want to emphasize to everybody that's listening, if you're a small township, you're a small, you know, a city or something like that, understand you're not going to get to this level that the Ohio Department of Transportation is doing right now. You will get there eventually, but it's going to take you some time. It's going to take some investment, but these are all possibilities. Speaking across the country, and I hear places go, well, we can't do that. We can't jump right into that. And that is not expected. You know, and when Steve first contacted me quite a few years ago now, they had nothing, just a tank and some liquid they tried to do. And then as things go on, you start developing this stuff, but you have to start small. That's why when I talk about it, even if it's just at the spinner, huge savings, big savings, and things will develop as you go on. And as 1 year goes by, 2 years, 3 years, and the Department of Transportation, what I've been pushing across the state of Ohio, we've been at this since 2008. And then we started in more and more in 10, 11, you know, it was just at the spinner. And now it's all the way up to, you know, semis. And we have semis all across the state. And a lot of the big cities, they use it. One of the next things that we're working on right now is liquid only areas. The video I showed you with the semi, he treats all the main line. So all the main line pavement gets liquids only. We do assign a plow truck that has a plow on it, has salt, has liquids with them, but they only do ramps, shoulders, stuff like that they can do. And if it builds up so much, they can go out and they can plow some of the slush off the road. But with the semis, they can do most of the burning off of the snow and any kind of ice with liquids and liquids only. Liquids help. And this is huge. And this is what Steve was trying to emphasize in his video. Minimizes post-storm cleanup, resulting in a quicker return to normal traffic speeds. I'll give you an instance. The city of Bowling Green, and I work here and I live here. They used to push everything to the middle. So for years and years and years, when they plowed their snow, everything got pushed to the middle. And it would take them anywhere between 3 days, 4 days, or more to remove all the snow they pushed to the middle. They do exactly what Steve's doing now, where in the video you saw, they used DLA and they use direct liquids in the downtown area. And it has dramatically reduced their post-storm cleanup to almost none. They still plow to the center where Steve's video shows they still plow to the shoulder, but they're not, it's all melting. So the post-storm cleanup is huge. For us at the Department of Transportation, we used to spend days after the storm plowing back points and plowing back, you know, ramp areas that was, so when you get off the ramp, the section right there at the beginning is a point, and we would push all those back. Now they're non-existent. We haven't pushed back points in a long, long time. And our traffic gets to, instead of dipping down to low speeds, we have great skid numbers where they're, with using the liquids, they can travel at a higher speed and they can stop safer. So it's tremendously helping us. So that in return is helping maintain a more continuous level of service for their wider variety of conditions. So the traveling public is kind of, as you saw with the semi running in the video, they're driving at 50 miles an hour. You know, they're very comfortable, where if we weren't using that liquid and we were just using salt, that one, we'd be using a lot more salt, and B, they'd be slowed way down. The liquids, when you sit there and you put this out, it is an instantaneous result. When you put salt down on the roadway, the salt draws moisture, and it has to draw. It's a chemical reaction. So the salt draws moisture. It's like putting it on a steak. It draws that moisture out. Then it coats itself. Every granular of salt coats itself, and it creates brine. So salt melts nothing, but the liquid that it creates, when it pulls that liquid in and starts covering that granular of salt, and it starts creating a liquid, it is creating brine on the roadway. But that reaction takes anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes sometimes for it to start to react and create that brine and start melting things. Where when you're using liquid, and again, brine at a concentrate of 23.3% salt to water, it has an instantaneous effect. It has an instantaneous result of starting to melt. And it's a big additional tool for us in the department, and I know everybody that's using it now. Why didn't we think of this earlier? It's a great tool for helping us and everybody fight snow and ice.
Dale, I'd like to add to that.
Go for it, Steve.
Comment. So those that have been fighting snow for a number of years, especially in small towns, instantaneous results, every operator wants to see, right? So you have if you have a dry snow and you have an operator goes and applies salt, and if he goes back 20 minutes later and doesn't see any reaction from his salt, he'll go and throw salt again, and then you have these high numbers. When you use liquids, that driver sees instantaneous results. He goes down the road, he spreads, that snow melts. He feels satisfied. That also helps with buy-in from your team. Your team will now buy into the fact that they're seeing results take place right away. And the other item that's not listed on this list of liquids it helps the environment. Here in Worthington, sustainability, green is a goal of our city council, and we're reducing the amount of salt that is put into our streams and waterways. It reduces the amount of salt that deteriorates catch basins. And so liquids help in a number of ways besides just buy-in and continuous level of service. So thanks for that.
Yeah, just to comment about is talking about reducing the salt. The University of New Hampshire did a study of waterways, and they've around where they've done this direct liquid application. And And they talk about anywhere between a 50 to 80% reduction in the sodium chlorides that are found in the streams in that by using liquids on direct liquid application versus the straight salt. And remember in the first section where we were talking about the bounce and scatter, all of that material, over 80% of your material is lost, and it goes outside that, and then it goes into the streams or into your shoulders, into your grass areas. In one of my advanced talks or advanced presentations, that's in there about the EPA and how they're really looking at this as a positive and using less sodium chloride or salt. So, Steve?
So this is a map of Worthington showing our mains, our DLA routes. It's a geofence map. So in 2018 was our first year for applying, and we had this great idea that we would take data from certain locations to see how effective DLA was. And so the operator we had a separate app on a phone. The operator could take readings of the pavement temperatures, if it was snow covered. It was a map that I had, so I shared it. That's why it's a geofencing map. But this generally is just showing the routes, our mains, the priority roads that we do DLA on. Again, we are still doing direct liquid on priority 2s, but during any snow event, these roads, 58 miles of these roads, get direct liquid only. And we can talk a little bit further into the presentation or close to the end of the presentation. We do have the capability of running another truck behind this. Each road we visit at least once every 2 hours, in between fill ups and so forth. So we can hit every main. 2 trucks is hitting every main in our city during any snow event once every 2 hours. There has been times we felt that we were losing. And that's an exercise every community will do that starts with direct liquid. You may feel that the storm is beating you, and so we've run out and put 100 pounds per lane mile on a roadway that we may not have needed to do so. But we do have that capability. We don't have the luxury that the state has to have a tanker truck or a trailer with a truck and a salt truck behind it. So we just have a separate salt truck that will follow if need be. We have not experienced that, especially in the 2021 season. 2021 season was we went full bore. And we'll show that slide on how much liquid we used last season. But like I said at the beginning, we're still practicing. We're still learning. My team really has taken the bull by the horns, and they're the ones that are developing it. I'm just help guiding it. But this is a map of the mains that the City of Worthington maintains with direct liquid application.
I want to talk a little bit about reduced salt usage. If anybody has ever read or there's tons and tons and tons of articles in the Clear Roads magazines, and Clear Roads has come out and they have said across the country that using liquids has found to require 50% less material compared to granular only applications. So I didn't want to believe Clear Roads, so we've been doing a study for a while. So, and this is our Northwest Ohio for basically the Metro Toledo area. We started looking at this, and basically our average cost savings, our average savings for salt, not so much the cost, is about 31 to 33%. And if you look here in 2014-15, when I really started keeping track and we went hot and heavy with our semis, we only had 10.5% savings. And we found right after that, that the reason we only got that 10.5 was our operators were still trying to get buy-in with the liquid only. So like the semis, when they'd be out running the main lines and doing liquids, our salt operators, our truck operators that are in charge of the shoulders and the ramps and stuff like that, they were going out and they were hitting salt right behind them. And so it wasn't giving us a true response. So after the 2014-15, we started talking to our drivers. We started doing a little bit more educating our drivers and let the liquids work. Let them work, and they go out, and every 2 hours, we apply more liquid. So if you see here in 2015, 16, 16, 17, so 15, 16, we went to 32%. 16, 17, we went to 39%. That's about where we have been staying for 2018, 19, and 19, 20. We've been staying right about 39% less salt, so a savings, than in the past. So where we didn't use any liquids, we're right in that 39% savings. Steve will show you a chart. He's darn close. He's got great numbers, and he will show you at about a 33, 34, 35% savings. It's obtainable. It's very much obtainable. And the more you can educate your drivers what they need to look for, it's not easy. I'll tell you, it's not easy. You just can't go out there and throw salt down and walk away from it. You got to maintain it. You got to watch it. But you can do it. Steve?
So these are our numbers. We've been keeping numbers for a number of years, 20 some years. If you look at the blue and the green there, bars at the bottom, those are our averages. So this chart shows records we've been keeping since 1997. We have always used some type of liquid here in Worthington. When I hired in, we had calcium chloride. We poured on the truck in the salt, and we applied that way. As we've evolved, we have saddle tanks. So we've always applied a liquid to our salt. When we decided to move to direct liquid only, and you'll see it's only 3 years worth of data. But if you look in the bottom in the right-hand side, the last 3 years, we've averaged about 202 pounds per lane mile in our community from 307. Now, we were never heavy salt users, although there's been years we have been. But in that green bar, you'll see total man hours and total miles driven. Those items have reduced as well. So we went from 8,500 average miles down to 6,300 average miles. Same with manpower. We've reduced the amount of time we're spending out on the roadway from cleanup. Most of that's cleanup time, because we all know it doesn't take long to get the roads clean. It's the cleanup part that takes the most. We're not spending a bunch of time on the mains cleaning up, pushing corners. We're spending that time in the residential. The other thing I'd like to add is, buy-in is huge. Dale touched on it. I touched on it earlier. Buy-in takes place when your team designs and creates the maps. My team created the mapping. We had a small group of individuals that sat down, created the mapping, and they were the ones in charge of getting the DLA out on the roads, figuring out how long we could go before we needed to fill up the trucks. And so that really made a big difference. And once you get one or two guys understanding how good this is, and you see how instantaneous it is, buy-in becomes super easy. But these numbers really represent, we keep track of all of our snow totals year to year, and it's showing a 30% reduction right off the bat, and we're still practicing. Right now, we're putting down 100 gallons per lane mile. And just talking to Dale just in the past couple of days, I realized we can be backing that off some during an event. And instead of running out putting 100 gallons per lane mile, we could be at 60, and then gauging to see if that's holding during that 1-inch storm, or if we need to apply more sooner. So huge savings. It speaks for itself. There's no doubt about it.
And like I'll add with Steve on his, that's huge. You look at his chart here, and they're like the total man hours. You're going from 870 man hours to 567, or 202 pounds per lane mile from 307 pounds per lane mile for the year. It's huge, and that's where the kind of savings we're seeing. So. One thing I want to talk about, and you've heard Steve talk about it, you've heard me talk about it. You can forget my name and you can forget his name, but the one thing, and when you start to develop a DLA program, everything I talk about, and then right after this, the next screen is going to be a chart. And if anybody wants to write my email down at the end, I will send you out this chart to help you to start developing your program. We have based this on a 2-hour cycle time. So all of our trucks that do direct liquid application, they apply liquid at a given rate every 2 hours. I will tell you a quick story. The city of Fort Wayne contacted us a while back. They went out, during the salt crunch in 2014, where, the salt, you couldn't find it. They went out and they said, okay, we're going to use liquids. We're going to melt this snow. And they went out there and they melted all the snow. And they said, oh, it's all great. It's all good. Look at it. It's melting the snow. We're leaving. They all went home. And then the dilution of the solution. So the charts that we have made up, it's a set amount of liquid with salt in it, and then it will chew up so much new fresh snow. But as it snows, it's melting that snow, which is causing it to turn water. Okay, so that salt gets thinned out. So from 23.3%, it gets thinned out. And what happens is that solution gets diluted. So it's the dilution of the solution. And so you need to reapply your solution, your brine, back to the roadway to keep that level up, to keep the rate. So over the years, we have developed a chart that every 2 hours we apply. So forget everything, forget my name, forget everything, but do not forget that if you're going to go to this, you need to apply liquids every 2 hours. Now, if you want to apply a little salt with it, you can, then that'll extend it from 2 hours to maybe 3 or 4 hours, having a little granular with it. But you can work on that and see how it works for you. But for DLA, you want to apply liquids every 2 hours. So here's the chart. And if you look here, we don't apply a lot in freezing rain. You can, but mostly we go straight in freezing rain with granular only. Okay, but if we have a light snowstorm, let's say we're going to have about a ½ an inch per hour, and if you look here, the temperature rate is, temperature is 32 to 30, 29 to 27, 26 to 24, 23 to 21. Below 21, we talk about a blend or still straight brine. But let's take 23 to 21. Most snowstorms happen at around 20 to 25 degrees, somewhere in there. ½ an inch per hour, we're looking at, we apply, our application rates are at about 50 gallons per lane mile. If we get to a medium snowfall, about 1 inch per hour, we run it up to about 70 gallons per lane mile. Okay. And that is every 2 hours, we will go out and put 70 gallons per lane mile if it's snowing. The video I showed you where we had the semi out there and it was on the highway. He was running at about 50 to 55 gallons, give or take a little bit, per lane mile, because it was about a half an inch per hour storm. Now, there are times where you're going to get it ramped up and you think you're going to lose it, and you're getting that 3 inches per hour. If we get into that, most of the time our semis will pull off and go to plowing only with salt application until that snowfall amount comes down. If you're going to have 12 inches, it'll be hard to keep up, but we can do it. Let's talk a little bit about equipment. Just in the Toledo metro area, we have 6 5,500 gallon tankers. We have one 2,800 gallon mini tanker. We have 6 1,300, and that number is going up every year because we are developing new equipment that'll run. Will carry 6 tons of salt and anywhere between 800 to 1,100 gallons of liquid all at the same time. So we can put down liquid on new inserts and put down 50 pounds of lane mile salt. So we can get the best bang. We can get a little bit of both. We can get liquid and salt. So, and then we have one small little parking lot sprayer that we use to clean our parking lots, our district complex parking lots where they use liquid only or liquid with very little salt to clean our parking lots and stuff. This is a picture of one of our semis. Now I will tell you something about this semi. This semi can put down anywhere from 10, 15 gallons per lane mile all the way up to the flood bar, which is huge. And like Steve said, I will invite anybody that wants to come and see any of our equipment. Feel free to contact me and come on up. But when we flood, we can flood all the way up to 800 gallons per lane mile if we wish. If we have some very big hard pack that is on some of our rural routes, we can go out there and we can flood it. And again, it will melt right through that hard pack and start breaking the bond between the hard pack and the roadway. And then we can plow it off much, much easier. Again, saving time and energy and trying to burn it off with granular. This is one of these pull-on tankers that's, I think it's 1,800 gallons. And again, on the left side of the picture is our single axle with the 2,400 gallon trailer tanker. This here, when you're talking about equipment, and Steve, you can talk about this.
Yeah, so this is our brine machine. I did not get any pictures of our trucks. I'm sorry about that. We have 5 single axle dumps, and we have two inserts. One is a 1,300 gallon, one is a 1,000 gallon. We just purchased last year another 1,000 gallons. So in the 21-22 season, we will have 3 dedicated DLA trucks. The brine machine here is a Henderson Brine Extreme. Look, we didn't have a bunch of money to go out and buy all of this equipment right away. So we happened to be talking to Henderson. We were up purchasing a truck. They had this brine machine, was a demo unit sitting in their yard. We negotiated with them and got this at a reasonable price. We bought a Truck Fill Pro brand new to help us fill our trucks. But the thing about this brine machine is it'll make 6,000 gallons of brine an hour. We didn't consider what size water line we have in our facility. 6,000 gallons an hour is with a 6-inch water line. Well, we don't have a 6-inch water line. We have a 2-inch water line. So we're not making 6,000 gallons of brine an hour. We're making about 1,300 gallons of brine an hour. So when we get an event, we have the capability. And I think Dale, if you go to the next picture, I think it shows our storage. We can store 36,000 gallons of brine. We have one dedicated tank to beat heat concentrate. We don't do any blending. We're just going to follow up with salt if we get into those temperatures that are 21 degree below pavement temperature. We'll follow up with salt. And the reason for that is just think about the budget, right? You have 1,000 gallons of brine, but if you do a 30% mixture of beet heat at $1.48, that's 300 gallons per load. That's way too expensive for us to do. We have another tank there that we could put calcium in. We have, like I said earlier, we're still practicing. But when we get an event that's coming, all of these tanks are already full. And then we start making brine soon as we start depleting the tank. So our staff, somebody that's running a truck or that's running a DLA truck, they just monitor the brine machine as the event is going on. It should work flawlessly. It's like every piece of equipment. It works when it works, and when it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But generally, we can put salt in it. It'll continue to make brine, fill these tanks as we're using, and we have not run out during an event yet.
One of the biggest things, Steve, I'll just ad-lib a little bit, where Steve talked about, your water. Like a lot of your equipment manufacturers, they'll tell you, well, we can make, and we had this problem flat out, where we started the liquid process, and so we got a brand new Cargill unit. Then hey, we can make up to 6,000 gallons an hour. Well, that's awesome. So we put a 2-inch water line to it, and well, after a while, we figured out we were only making about 1,500 gallons an hour. So if with the tankers we run, I'm using 6,000 gallons every half hour. So you look at that, there ain't a machine made today that can make 6,000 gallons every half hour. And so you have to start small. You have a few tanks, you make some brine, you fill up one tank. I know, like the City of Bowling Green, they have a tank out at one of our facilities, but they might only use that one tank. Okay, and then they it gets filled up, and we go from there. But if you have enough and you're only going to use a couple thousand gallons of liquid for a storm, well, then one 6,000 gallon tank is more than enough. And so you just make sure that's filled before you start. But we were really going at it, and we were realizing, well, we need a bigger water line. So the next season we went to a bigger water line. We're up to, like Steve said, at our new facilities, we were either a dedicated 4-inch or bigger water line straight to our brine makers to allow it to have that big a capacity with no, we get away with a 4-inch, no problem, but dedicated to that brine maker right from the main. But when you're using as much as we are, that's what we require.
Right. We don't have that opportunity at the moment.
Correct.
The other point I'd like to make is that we've bought this stuff over time. And what I said about the brine machine, there are, Henderson, Cargill, they all have demo units. There's auctions on a regular basis. Henderson has, they have clearance sales periodically. If you watch their website, that's how I bought our 3rd tank last year. And what we did is we have a line item in our budget for salt usage, but it's salt and equipment. That allowed me to be able to purchase some of this equipment to do what we are doing currently today. One year we bought the two 10,000. These are the tank 5 and 6 are both 10,500 gallon tanks. So one year I bought both those tanks. The year before we bought two 6,000 gallon tanks. We already had two 3,000 gallon tanks. So so we just slowly over time have been adding to our facility so that we can do this direct liquid application. But it doesn't happen all at once, and it takes money to save money in the long run. But I do see that our return on investment will be less than 5 years, especially at a 30% savings. So.
And that goes across the board. I mean, the state of Ohio just didn't tell me, hey, yeah, go ahead and go out and buy yourself semis and go out and buy yourself stuff. We're as tight as anybody else. I made a deal with the deputy, one of the big deputy directors a long time ago. You show me 30% or more savings, and we'll talk about buying a couple more semis. And so that next year I went out and showed him, and I hit that 39%. Then all of a sudden we got a couple more tankers. We got a couple more semis. And so because of that savings, using the less salt and that cost and time, we were able to save that. So it happens in time. We've just been at this a long time. So if you're starting, start small and just work your way up. I'll go quickly on the next few slides. Our capacities here, just in my area around the Toledo Metro, we have our brine makers. We have one at each facility. We have a Henderson Extreme fixed, a Henderson Extreme trailer unit, and then we have a Cargill AccuBrine system. All three facilities have around 60,000 gallons of brine storage and 30,000 gallons of admixtures that I can also make into brine storage if that's what I want. We do have calcium chloride. We do have Apex C, which is an admixture, and bead heat. To let you know, just like Steve said, when we're doing DLA and you see that semi out there running, he's running brine only. The only time we get into blending is in a truck unit, or if we need to burn off something that is just big, heavy, thick, hard pack. We will get into bead heat, Apex C, or calcium chloride, something like that. But when we talk about anything inside of our trucks, in our saddle tanks, it is always straight brine. So my liquid usage, just 2019, in the area, we use 23,000 gallons of bead heat. I use 40,000 gallons of Apex C, only 5,900 gallons of calcium chloride. And we are trying to use as little calcium chloride as possible, as calcium chloride is a steel-eaten liquid. It will eat up things that you didn't think it could, but it will. So we're trying to reduce the use of calcium chloride the most we can. And our salt brine was about 2.2 million gallons. And again, when we're saving 39% off of our salt and our hours, and we're getting, just like Steve showed in his chart, we're getting about the same type of savings out there. That's huge for us. I mean, it sounds like a huge amount of gallons, but it saves us tremendous amount. Go ahead, Steve.
We used 313,000 gallons of brine last year. Corrosivity is something that we were concerned about, especially for our trucks. I mean, we're putting liquid brine down on a regular basis, so we invested in a new power washer with an undercarriage washer, and then we bought some salt neutralizer. And so after an event, we make sure that we do our underbodies and all of our, even though we have stainless steel beds, that is something that we were concerned about, was using brine on a regular basis as much as we were. So we've kind of stepped up our game on cleaning.
Talking about in this one here, this was a study we did out on a rural 2-lane road where we kind of let it go to hardback because we wanted to check and see what we could do. And this was January 13th of 2016. Temperature out was 10 degrees. It was a 5.5 miles, 11 lane miles section. We had a 5-mile-an-hour wind. And we went out on this hard pack and we spread 3,500 gallons of 85-15. So that was 85% brine to 15% of a product back then called Aqua Salina. It's very much like an Apex C liquid now. We did 6 passes at about 40 gallons a lane mile. And what we did was we went down and back, see how it did, went down and back, see how it did, and we ended up doing 6 passes. The picture you're looking at right here was 8 a.m. And again, it was 10 degrees out. The clouds are just clearing up. We watched the weather. We said the storm's over. Let's start burning this off so we can get back into good pavement. We know the sun's going to come up, so let's see what happens. The after picture, which you're going to see in 2 more slides, was 9:45, so that's an hour and 45 minutes later. This was during one of our passes. You can see on the left side of the roadway, it's down to slush. 1 hour and 45 minutes later, all hard pack is gone, and we have wet road. It's still only about 10 degrees, 12 degrees out. Temperatures are just starting to go up. One of the things I'm going to show you here, things you can do as a small municipality is work together. Or, you know, you work and spray sidewalks. We spray our sidewalks around our buildings with straight brine and melt the snow instead of wrenching people's backs, trying to shovel and do stuff like that. If it gets too thick, it gets too thick, but we have to shovel it. But we do spray it. Here's a section around one of our buildings. This was before, and this is 4 a.m. 4 a.m., it's 20 degrees out, and we went and sprayed it with straight brine. 20 minutes later, that's what you got. And that's at about a gallon, half a gallon a square yard. The City of Bowling Green, this is pictures from them. They pre-treat, and then during the storm, they have a sprayer that they spray all of their sidewalks and around their municipal buildings, their stairways going up into the municipal buildings. And we do the same thing here at our district complex. It keeps that salt from carrying up the steps, getting on people's shoes, walking in. The only thing I'm going to tell you is, if you get into this, and you as a small municipality or whatever, you're getting into it and you're starting to spray liquids, do not spray bead heat or just that brown liquid, the bead base liquids, even if it's in a blend on staircase or sidewalks that are going to walk into a building. First year we did it, guess what? We ruined all the carpet in our main entrance area because it had a brown tint to it, and everybody walked in with their shoes, and guess where it all went? Right onto the carpeting. So from experience, use straight brine, straight liquid, okay? Regional partnerships. We're getting to the end of the presentation, but one of the things I want to talk about here is regional partnerships. And this is effective in large and small cities. Regional partnerships, you know, villages, townships, parks. We have a park district up here that does not use salt. They only spray their roads in their park. It's the Toledo Metropolitan Parks District. They only use liquids. And they pre-treat their roadway, they plow their roadway, and when it's all said and done, they come back and they flood their best they can. They just do multiple passes and they burn off anything they have, but they've prevented that bonding because of the pre-treating, and then they plow and then they put liquid down. They do not use granular salt, so it's all liquids only. One of the things that we've done here is we work with all of our groups, and this is where I say work with your larger. If you have DOT, an ODOT around you, especially in central Ohio. The ODOT there will help you get started. They can even sell you brine liquid. We do not sell any of our admixtures. We can't do that, but we can sell at cost the liquid. So if you're just getting started, you can do an agreement. And what we do is, instead of like you having to go out and purchase your own brine maker, and you're just wanting to get started to see if it works, and you buy a tank, you can get an agreement with your local DOT, and you can buy that liquid from them to get started, to see how it works, to see how it goes. Now, we come first, and if we're in the heat of a battle, I have shut off municipalities from getting liquid, because when I'm putting down 6,000 gallons a half an hour, I can't take time to, have a couple of different trucks in there. So we have had to shut people down to maintain the interstates first. But that, to start somebody off, to see how it works, that's a great way to start. It's a great way to get going, and then maybe start working in your budget to where you buy a brine maker or do something like that. So, and assisting in developing liquids programs. This is where you contact Steve or you contact myself, and you ask for information and to help and come see and to help develop a liquids program. That's what we're here for. We're here to educate, and this is what this whole LTAP thing is about, is educating. And you're not alone. I've been all across the country. I've been in Arkansas helping them. I've been up in the East Coast. Everybody's the same. Everybody's starting to get onto this, but this education is huge to get out there and to help people develop liquids programs. And so work together. Wouldn't you agree, Steve?
I would agree. We have 2 townships that we work with now, and they're getting brine from us. They're not doing direct liquid at this point, but they weren't even applying any liquid at the spinner, and they both have bought trucks, and so they come to our facility during an event and they can fill up their trucks during the event. And we've not had a situation where we've ever needed to shut anybody off. But absolutely, and anybody in the local area or outside the local area would like to come see our operation, me and my staff would love to show you what we're doing and how we've done it, and help you get started on your journey as well.
This picture that's in front of you right now, it's showing one of the City of Bowling Green. They still buy liquid brine from us out at one of our facilities here in Bowling Green. But they're getting so big, they have 3 of these trucks now. And when if you look right next to it, that's one of our saddle tank trucks that's just puts it at the spinner. And you got an 1,800 gallon swap loader truck sitting there. He's filling up, and you have one of our trucks. This is where I was talking about. It gets a little when everybody's trying to get the liquid at the same time, can be a little dicey, where we've unfortunately had to say we're first. We don't like to do that, and we've only done that maybe once or twice in 10 years, but it happens. So, but work with your other groups, work with your town around you that might be into liquid. You don't need to go out and spend the money for no reason. See if it works first. Conclusions. Liquids provide a higher level of service. You'll find out you have a far less traffic accidents. You're going to reduce that by maintaining your skid numbers, keeping your pavement at a better condition than it would be with just granular. So that you're going to maintain that higher traffic speed compared to using only salt. Very little, if any, plowing required during post-storm cleanup. If you do nothing but plow, salt, plow, salt, plow, salt, use liquids to clean up. Instead of that, just salt on top of salt on top of salt to burn off some stuff, you will find just a huge savings if you can put it at the spinner and you can do post-storm cleanup with it. Huge difference. So, and then the conclusion, the liquids will save time and save salt. As Steve showed in his handout, he's reduced his man hours dramatically, and he's saved about 100 pounds per lane mile average over non-liquid years. So here's some information for you. Here's some phone numbers for Steve, and his email address. I'll leave this screen up for a couple minutes. And then my information, I'm the Roadway Services Administrator Manager out of District 2, Bowling Green. Here's my direct office number and my email. And feel free to email me or Steve and come see our what we have also, and we can help you in any way, shape, or form. So I'm going to leave this up. The next screen is just the, any questions. So let's leave this up. And to our moderator, if there's any questions that need answered, this would be a good time to start.
Yep, thanks, Dale. Got a few questions here for you all. First one here is on the homemade trailer. How is that pressurized?
The liquid is hydraulic. What we did was the tanks are non-pressurized, but the pump that pulls the liquid, we removed the spinner motor from the back of the truck, and the pump, hydraulic pump on the trailer, is plumbed into the old spinner hydraulics. So the operator controls the amount of liquid by using the spinner for low 1 through 10, and then we have it calibrated for amounts of liquid per 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and up. So, but it's running off of hydraulics.
Thank you, Dale. Next one here is, what is the brine ratio salt to water that you use?
The liquid is 23.3% brine, is salt to water. That is very specific. Liquid, if you make a liquid at 23.3% salt to water, your freeze point is at about a -6 degrees, right in there. As you start to decrease your salt to water, so you're getting more water in there, your temperature, your freeze point will come up. The other thing you have to watch, that's where we talked about dilution of the solution. So you have to watch that. The other thing is, and this is what will happen, and I've gone out as a, to help one municipality, they were just pouring salt into literally into a vat and mixing water with it, and then until it could almost take no more salt, and then putting it on the road. If you go from 23.3% salt to water to 27% salt to water, the freeze point of that liquid goes from -6 to 32 degrees. So literally, we had a complaint. The guy, a group was saying that I'm putting liquid down and it's freezing right behind the truck. And I said, well, you got to have the liquid. Well, it's brine. It's brine. Well, when I got there and we talked about it, it was at about 28% salt to water, and that eutectic temperature will actually freeze at 32 degrees. So it did them no good. So it's not always better to put more in there. So we make it at 23.3.
What is the cost per gallon on the de-icing material compared to salt?
For us here, my liquids are running about 7 cents to 11 cents a gallon, just depending on my water costs. My salt is running about $60 a ton. So by using the liquid and saving that, it's a lot. We are getting a lot of savings off of it.
I think we're about anywhere between 11 and 15 cents a gallon to make it. And the way I figure per gallon is 2.5 pounds of salt per gallon of water, which is the 23.3%. And so salt this year for us, or last year, was relatively cheap compared to past years. I think the 2021-22 season will be $58 a ton, piled, I believe, or maybe it was, I think it was piled. But that 30% savings is based off of the liquid, but it's costing somewhere between 11 and 15 cents a gallon to make brine.
Here is the last question that we've got is, how long does it take on average to fill your tanker at your facility for the 1,300 gallon tank?
So that's a good question. For us, it can take us about 20 minutes. One of the things we didn't talk about is pitfalls or challenges. One of our challenges is that we have both, when we run together, we have both trucks here. And so my staff is in the shop filling up faster. So just think about it. If you have a 1,300 gallon tank and you run 100 gallons per lane mile, you get 13 miles before you have to refill, right? So it takes us about 20 minutes. We've come up with some solutions to stagger our trucks. That was the purpose for the third truck, not only to do the priority 2 streets, but also to relieve a truck during a fill time so we could stagger those times. That was one of the challenges that we came across was filling up. You're in the yard a lot to fill up. I think this year we will practice reducing the amount of liquids we're putting down, especially using the chart that Dale has supplied in this presentation will help guide us along those lines. I'm not sure how long it takes Dale's trucks to fill up, but that's what it is here at Worthington.
Our insert trucks that look, some of our inserts will contain about 1,000 gallons of liquid and 5 to 6 tons of salt, but those take about the same, about 15 minutes. My semi units, they are 100% self-contained, so they have their own 3-inch pumps built into them. They are gas-powered pumps, so they can pull up. We can run we have it set up to where 2 semis can come in, pull out liquid at the same time. They take only 15 minutes to fill up 5,500 gallons. They take the pumps off of idle and run them up at full throttle, and they can fill those tanks in about 5,500 gallons in less than 15 minutes. So and that is all built into our 2-hour window that we talk about. So we do exactly what Steve does, is those semis are contained to a specific area to where within their 2-hour window is putting their liquid down. And then if we're at 100 gallons lane mile, they can only do 55 lane miles. And then they have to come back and fill up and go back out and apply more liquid at that specific ratio and be within 2 hours. If they're only putting down 50 gallons a lane mile, well, then they can do 4 hours before they have to come in, or 110 lane miles. So when you're thinking about things like that, all of that is pertinent. And how much? The first year I did it, back in 2008, we sent an old semi we had out there, and I sent him to the max. Next thing I know, I created a skating ramp because I couldn't get back within 2 hours. And that's where we learned the 2 hours. And I-75 by Bowling Green was a skating rink. And we got to cut him down. So we shortened his route, and then it started to work, and then we developed the 2 hours. So those are things you will have to think about when you start getting into direct liquids or at the spinner or anything, is getting that liquid.
Dale, do you know if District 12 is as committed to DLA? Just the person with the comment was wondering, considering the amount of snowfall that they get over District 2, if they experience the same results.
They don't do as much DLA as we do, but the busier district is District 4, which is straight to the Ashtabula and up in the upper corner. They do a lot of DLA, and they use more than we do. And there's a couple counties up there that when we develop it, that we kind of develop it together, and they went gangbusters. But a lot of it isn't so much about DLA, and they do it during the storm, but it's their cleanup. They will go out and flood roadways after the storm when they're trying to get that hard pack or trying to get that last bit off without burning the salt. They go out and they will flood. Instead of using 60, 100 tons of salt, they'll only go out and use maybe, if you use 60 gallon or 6,000 gallons, there's 6 tons of salt. So if you use 60,000 gallons, there's 60 tons of salt. It's 1 ton per 1,000 gallons. So, and they can burn off a lot of snowpack with 60,000 gallons of liquid, huge amounts. So they're saving a lot of salt by using liquids.
And with that, that was our last question there. So if nothing else comes in, I'll say that's the end of our presentation here. Thank you very much, Dale and Steve.
Thank you.